Oh,
Hey, over there.
Over there.
Hey, over there.
We're live.
Look over there.
Everything's
Look over
backwards.
there.
I feel like I'm a camera. Like this used to be a tripod.
Right.
Now it's
We've all turned
Me.
around.
Cheers, everybody.
Cheers.
Ken's a little confused today. He's had
I'm on tripod.
Cheers.
too much to drink before the show, but that's all right.
That's great. Hey.
Welcome to another episode
Cheers.
of the Hermits live on Monday night. We're
live.
We're live.
We are alive.
It's we're alive too. It's a small miracle considering the shenanigans that we get involved with. But
What's everybody else having?
yeah, so what are we drinking? Well, wait a minute.
This one, it's empty already.
It's empty.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's empty.
we're gonna need another one of those. We got another one in here
I
somewhere.
don't think so.
Damn.
Downstairs. We have a few other things to do.
All right, good. But before
Did
we
we derail you
get
again?
started, yeah, you successfully. Welcome to our Monday broadcast. Thank you for joining us. If you're new today, follow Chuck's fingers. Yeah,
Yep.
follow Chuck down to the button below and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We'd love to have you.
Where the snail would be eating.
Oh,
the,
yeah.
the plate of food in front of
He's
the
eating
snail.
the subscribe button.
Yes.
Okay,
Is that what's happening?
that's what's happening.
Yep.
So, and if you're on Facebook, there's a little bell on the screen, and you hit that bell, and you'll subscribe to our Facebook channel. We'd love it if you would subscribe to our Facebook and YouTube channels, because that way, whenever we go live, whether it be Monday night or somewhere else in the universe, you'll get an opportunity to join us. You'll get invited to join us. So we'd love that. And also, if you are joining us today, we'd love it if you put a comment in the comment sections, letting us know you're here, so we can say hello. And
Let us know what you're drinking.
let us know what you're
Let us
drinking.
know what you're drinking.
And if you have any
Good.
questions, let us know those too. And either Marika will get to them right away, or she'll bring them to the group so we can answer them live on the air. And we'd love it if you'd like our broadcast, share it with anybody that you know who might enjoy this type of presentation. And I think that covers it. So now we can talk
Really?
about the fine
I'm done.
alcohol that's in here. Yeah, sure you are.
What's the subject today?
We just released our latest version
And we're
of
already
our
out. We're already out.
Heirloom Crabapple Cider. It just got bottled just a few days ago, and
Heirloom?
no, heirloom. Heirloom.
Like my
I know
name is
it's
Air.
often confused with heirloom, but it isn't. It's heirloom.
Spelled heirloom.
Yes, not actually.
Not AIR.
Really. It's not
Is
really.
there such a loom? Is there a weaving thing?
There is a heirloom.
There's a heirloom. You could turn hair into a
into a
jacket.
rug or
A
something like
rug.
that.
Yeah,
Wow.
motorcycle.
That's a
we,
new version of it.
we have been drinking, haven't we?
This is going to be a record
Juices are
show.
flowing.
Oh my goodness.
What's that?
This is going to be, if we're starting off like
We've
this.
gone off the rails already. We're only in the first 5 minutes.
I know.
Erica's thrown in the towel. She's like, okay, I don't know where these guys are going.
I'm just going to take this and go off
We haven't seen
downstairs.
Chuck in a while.
Yeah,
And
I've
so
been,
this is a
been on the
festive
road.
occasion.
I've been upside down and Boeing 777s out over the
Upside
Atlantic
down?
Ocean in the simulator.
In the sim.
It's like, okay, wait, you can look up now. The airplane's upside down and cattywampus.
So you're looking at the
aiming upside
ocean?
down. And there's like, oh, I forget it. We're done. 300 people. It's just we're gonna fall apart.
So what do you
and
do
spin.
with that?
Well,
Fail.
I was gonna say, yeah, you're not
Put on
supposed
your
to be
seatbelt.
upside down.
No, here's the first thing you do. This is kind of funny. You say upset,
Say what?
upset.
Upset?
Yeah, upset.
Upset.
Yeah, and then you turn the simulator off and you get out and you go have a beer
I'm upset.
I'm upset right now.
or a glass of wine.
Throw a tantrum.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, the procedure is upset. You push forward on the stick a little bit to unweight the G loads on the wing,
To reset?
and then you roll the aircraft towards.
So you're
wings level.
like this, and all of a
So,
sudden you're
yeah.
going to go like that.
So you're looking at an instrument. If you look out the window, it's like you see clouds and then blue above you. It's so just
Everybody out there, remember, Chuck's a pilot.
Yeah.
That's what Chuck
We
does.
came here to drink and
Oh, I
talk
thought he was talking
fun.
about skiing.
Yeah, that's true.
Upset.
We're going skiing tomorrow.
I thought he was talking about
Tomorrow.
motorcycle riding.
If we can just not stay
Yeah.
on subject matter this whole podcast, we'd be doing really
Well, then we won't get to share any of these fine
Oh,
wines.
so we wouldn't get-
Well, we are sharing it.
So, sorry. So
Yeah.
the
New
whole-
crabapple cider. Enjoy.
Yeah, so this,
Okay.
last
So
year was the
you're
first
upside
year we
down.
came out with this, right?
Last year?
fall?
No, this is a couple of years, right?
So we skipped the vintage because we
I
didn't
was
have many
thinking-
crab apples last year.
Oh, okay.
This is
So
actually
we
a little
had
bit
it-
on topic.
Okay.
Yeah.
So 2 years ago, we had enough crab apples to make the very first version, vintage of this crabapple cider. And then last year we didn't have enough, and this year we did have enough.
Good.
So tell us why, give us some background on the Dolgo crabapple, because this is key to this whole story, is the Dolgo crabapple.
Well,
It's about,
we're not quite sure about the story,
well, that's,
but it did start in your yard.
That's right.
We will agree on that, right?
I planted the tree at Bob's house.
I don't know about that part.
Yeah.
Did one of us cut it down? We just harvested the fruit, right?
You went at it with an axe.
Yeah, shaking it.
I think everybody can hear me.
Yeah, we can.
Yes.
you can hear him?
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay, good.
Yeah, so you tried to chop it down with an axe, and I said, I was on my mountain bike and I came over and I said,
Was he
"Ken,
there?
You can't chop down the tree."
And then Johnny Appleseed pulled
George
up
Washington came up on a horse.
Be-
afterwards.
before
Washington.
Johnny Appleseed.
Well, Johnny
I thought
Appleseed-
Jefferson was the one that was really into wine. Let's stay on topic here.
So there was a crabapple tree.
Yeah, so there's a crab
So there was a crabapple tree.
And you
years
tasted the
ago.
apples.
It's probably
On
still
some
there,
day.
actually.
One
Probably still there
to
in
one
the
to
yard.
three of you tasted one of these crab apples on a day.
And we said, ha
back around
You
what,
beat me.
we should make
2010,
alcohol out of this.
11,
9 or 10, probably.
2009 or 10.
No, it was
Tasted the
8.
crab apples.
8
Yep.
was the first one?
Sometime between 2007 and 2012,
It was
1 to
2008.
3 of these gentlemen tried a crab apple at.
Ken tried the crab apple after a mountain.
Didn't we all get
Did
to
we
try the
agree on that?
2008
Yeah.
last 2 weeks ago?
Was that 2008?
Didn't we have a
maybe.
2008
Yeah.
Yeah, we had an old crab.
But anyway,
it was that old.
it was a
like
tasty
12
crab
or
apple.
something like that.
No,
This
we had one of the
actually sounds
first
like
ones.
a biblical story because Ken ate the crab apple and then the winery.
And then everything went to hell.
Everything
it
was
was
just-
it was the tree of knowledge, really.
just
is what it was.
spewed
It
out
started
from
this
there.
whole-
Could start a religion.
It
That's
felt
the
so Ken.
basis of most of them, right? It's
It
like
is. It's-
somebody
it's-
eating.
Did everybody
something.
have a
It's a
great
story.
Thanksgiving?
Did you have some apple wine
We had
on
a
your
wonderful
table?
It seems like
Thanksgiving.
we're still carrying on.
Yeah.
somehow.
Did you enjoy? Let us know if you enjoyed a crabapple product with your Thanksgiving dinner. Because by the
I
way,
did.
if you did not know, yes,
Here.
so did I. Right here. If you didn't know, crabapples and Thanksgiving dinner go splendidly. Yes, they really do.
We
We
actually,
didn't know
for
that
once,
at the time.
we didn't have heirloom crabapple on our table this Thanksgiving. I know.
What?
We did have a bottle of strawberry rhubarb as the
In
charcuterie.
its
The
place?
sparkling Cirque de
Oh,
Strawberry was
Cirque
part of
du
our
Oh.
charcuterie appetizer and
Mhm.
was very well received.
Not that we're talking about that, but did everybody just think that was super duper? Yeah, and the bottle and the packaging. I mean,
It's
that's
pretty
just-
darn
Yeah,
it's just-
yeah.
I think people have liked it.
excited.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, back to crab apples. Why
Yeah.
did you choose to make a wine from it? I mean, that seems like a silly thing to do.
I know. I was going to make beer out of it, but it
Yeah.
just didn't seem. I wasn't really into fruited beers at the time.
No.
Beer's mostly
So-
barley. There's really no barley in a crabapple.
Mhm.
And we were making wine out of grapes. And I was starting to realize that, a grape is just some flavor, some juice, and some sugar that, Mother Nature puts together out there. And so we could take a crabapple and some water and some sugar, kind of make a grape out of it.
Yeah.
Throw it in a bucket and let it ferment. And lo and behold, we might have something.
And this literally was from a random decorative tree on the property at Samerton, where we started the winery. But you did some research and you found out that this crabapple was brought over from Kazakhstan.
That was later. I think that you were the historian, I think, on that one.
Yeah.
But either way,
Somebody figured it
Yeah,
out.
it came over from Kazakhstan in the late 1800s and was used to flavor the cider they were making back then. Because in that time period, cider was one of the #1 beverages in the country.
oh yeah.
People were drinking cider because they couldn't
Rightfully
drink.
so.
Yes, they couldn't drink the water. The water was often contaminated, so they could make cider at a lower alcohol and consume it at all times of the
Well,
day.
apples grow really well around here.
Yeah.
That's just it. The grapes that grow around here are great for making jams and jellies and things like that.
Yeah.
But the natural apples that grow around here just are fantastic.
So I always talk about this, or I have talked about this in the past when I used to do a lot of tours here. But I've always imagined, and I don't have any research on this or haven't done any history on this, but a large portion of the population of New England came here directly from Europe. And many of the people who came here had an opportunity to try wine. I'm guessing.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
a likelihood.
Oh, yeah.
They tried classic wine made from grapes before emigrating to the United States. And I imagine that very few people back in the 17 and 1800s could afford the cost of importing wine
No,
from
No, I don't think.
Europe, right? So
no, they weren't doing that. They
And
were.
we
they
hadn't-
were, parked here on this continent, and they had to scrabble and make it work.
Right. And there were no wine grapes here. And they had not figured out how to make grape wine from the grapes that were growing in this part of the world. So,
And I think ciders have been made in Normandy and in Great Britain for thousands of years.
yeah.
So that knowledge was already there. The drink was already something of familiarity to them. The water was contaminated there as well. So they were already drinking, making and drinking cider.
So
So,
there
they
was
show up
just-
here and they're like, oh, we'll call this
Apples.
New England because it's kind of like England. We can grow apples here. We can make hard cider.
And a lot of other fruit, not just apples, but I imagine that people have been fermenting, wide varieties of fruit here for a long time to produce their
Pears.
beverages, both for their enjoyment in the afternoon, as well as sustenance, as well as a replacement for water. So,
Right.
yeah.
And then they learn how to freeze it, and then make it even
Apple
stronger.
jack.
Even better.
So, yeah,
I think
so
we
that's
had that on the mind when we started doing.
Although they did know how to distill, because distilling came from
Oh, yeah, they were bringing
way
in rum.
back. They were
bringing in
distilling in
rum.
the 1700s here in the U.S.
Yeah.
Remember the war that was started from the distilling industry? Yeah, there was
Someone was cutting off their scotch and they
well,
wanted to get-
everybody was distilling and making their beverages, and the king wanted to tax it.
Oh, taxes. Yeah.
Uh-huh,
So
that's
it
right.
created a major. It wasn't actually.
It
No,
wasn't just
I
the
wasn't the king. I think it was the. This was after the revolution. This war. Somebody on there will know.
the president
Yeah,
wanted to tax
Somebody
it?
will know. There's a name for it. The whiskey war,
rebellion or-
Oh.
whiskey rebellion, or something.
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
Something like that. Yeah, that sounds familiar.
It was a major issue.
Yeah, somebody's going to have to educate.
Where are our American historians out there? But that hits upon the sort of overarching theme of today's show is not just cider. We're sort of inspired by the new cider that we've just re-released, but we wanted to talk about apple alcohol in general, because there's so many different things that you
Well,
can
'cause
ferment apples
This is
into.
all apple
It's
alcohol
all
Yeah.
apple.
right here.
And there's a lot that isn't here because we
Right.
don't make it
Or we
that
drink
you
it all.
can do. So we've got cider, we've got apple wine, we've got cider, but then there's also ice cider, there's applejack, there's apple
Well,
brandies,
some
there's
great ice ciders.
apple whiskeys
I have some of
probably.
those to try.
You do.
You should have brought.
So the Dolgo, back to the apple story,
Yeah.
and the perfect grape thing, or build a grape.
Yeah.
It turns out that this little apple that we knew nothing about is a very tannic, very small, a lot of fruits and mass. It has a Brix of up to 17 or more, so
Right.
it's very sweet,
Right.
and has a lot of acidity. So it actually, in and of itself, contains this great,
Everything you need.
everything for
Everything you
tasting fermented beverage.
Right.
So you just have to add a little water and a little sugar to get the right.
Yeah, you could do
chemistry.
it straight up.
I think you did
I
almost
did.
do it straight up in the
It's-
first round.
it's
It was
pretty
so
intense.
sour.
It's
that
pretty
we-
intense.
When we first tried it, it was not a success. Right?
So
It was-
it's interesting that this is such a great fruit, and it took so long to make a cider out of it. Although there's some caveats to that. And first of all, when we first discovered it, we started making wine out of it, and so we had a very successful wine, and we could hardly get enough crab apples to make the wine that we would sell out of the wine every year
After
in the beginning.
chop down your trees.
that was George Washington.
George Washington. So anyway, so we were so engaged with the wine that we didn't often have crab apples to add to the ciders. Although when we first started making ciders, you started adding a small amount to all of our cider products, right? I think, or no?
No, in the beginning, the cider products were from everybody getting together.
Oh, I bet
In the
that's
fall.
Steve's
Oh,
house.
no. I meant when you
Steve,
first released a commercial one in 15. You released your
So,
first
15.
Hermit Woods hard apple cider came out in 15.
That's correct, and that's when we did Firewood.
Did that have Dolgo in it?
It had Dolgo in it,
Okay.
and it had some quince in it,
Yep.
and it had some pears in it, and it was the base cider was formulated by Chuck Souther at Apple Hill.
So a small amount of
All
crab apple has been in every
Heirloom
vintage.
apples.
Heirloom apples.
Every vintage cider.
And every vintage has had some Dolgo in it.
Okay.
Some even from the park.
So what 2 years ago made you decide to make a Dolgo crab apple cider? Because you were using the Dolgo in the cider, and then you decided you're going to create something that's really built around it, which is what this
Probably
is.
one of you came up with that.
I don't. You
Hey
know,
Ken, why don't you make a crab apple cider?
Or it was just a banger
You
year
did, you did the
for
cranberry
apples.
cider. You're the one who said,
Yeah.
Ken, why don't you make a cranberry cider?
I'm
What's
And
sorry,
I
that
was making
idea?
rosé. It was a good idea.
that was a great idea. No, and this is, I don't think we've ever just had the opportunity to do that. Just on the Dolgo crop is a crop that grows here and it changes every year, right? So some years we can't get enough and other years we can. I think it was one of those, we had a bunch of extra ones, so it was a why not situation.
Yes, and we also had a new
wasn't.
supply.
It was interesting. It wasn't that way.
It wasn't that way.
Ironically, we did it in a small year
Oh, yeah.
of Dolgo,
Yeah, wow.
which was really strange.
So it's
I don't know why I did that. I wasn't really thinking. I made a crabapple cider and a crabapple cider in a year that we didn't have enough
You were
Dolgos to make
inspired.
our apple wine. I think it was because in 2019 we were so overwhelmed.
There
That's
was
what it
so
was.
much. We only just,
2019.
yeah.
We still had leftover from the year before, right?
Right.
In
So
inventory.
So you
2019
didn't need
lasted
much
through this
of the
year.
crabapple wine.
Yeah.
Right,
We had so
right.
much.
Oh,
So that's what it was.
2019.
So 2019, this is what happened. 2019, we had an unprecedented harvest of Dolgo crabapples, the largest ever, 9,000 pounds. We were hoping for 5,000 pounds, so almost double. And so we made all this stuff. I had to buy extra containers to put the wine into, and it was overwhelming. The following year, we still had plenty of the 2019 crabapple around.
So
And
even
although
though
it was a small crabapple harvest, we got our apples from our orchards that you relate to interface for us with, and we made 2 new products.
Oh,
We
that's
made
what.
a
Yeah, you skipped
crabapple
it. You
cider.
didn't make any crabapple.
We didn't make any crabapple.
Because there's
I
no-
made a sparkling.
You made the sparkling
In
heirloom
20.
crabapple in 20, but there's no
But
2020
there's no
heirloom
2020
crabapple.
heirloom crabapple
Yeah.
wine.
and it became this.
And there's the first vintage of that.
And then the following year, we didn't have enough crab apples.
The
So
following year,
we just
didn't
made
have
the crab
enough,
apple wine.
and that was in 21.
So in 22,
21, we didn't make sparkling, we didn't make crabapple cider, we didn't make anything but this product.
Yep.
And then in 22, we had a great big harvest again.
So we
that
made
is
cider
why
again.
we are
Have
releasing
crabapple cider.
today our crab apple cider again for the first
Yes.
time in 2 years. When did we sell out of this? Did we? It's been gone for a while, right?
It has.
it's been
We
going
did
for a
have enough.
while.
My mom reminded me that we did actually have we had a bottle of this on the table at Thanksgiving, but it was the last vintage that I had bought
Oh, the
her
previous
probably
vintage.
near the end of when we were about to run out of
Wow.
it. She's had it in her cellar and then fridge for a long time.
Yeah.
But we found it and drank it down. Real quick.
Yeah, good
Well,
for
I
you.
highly recommend this
Yeah.
as a cider because it is, the Dolgo makes such a great appley.
It's delicious.
It's
this is his
it's
best
so
vintage too.
It
crisp
really
and tart.
is. It's just everything that you dream a cider would taste like. This is it. It's right in the middle.
Yeah.
So how
I love
much do we have of
tart
this?
it is.
How much is this? Do we have? How many cases?
It will be, it's not done yet being bottled, but it will be a total of 80 cases or so.
Okay, so not that much. And you say it's not done being bottled. It's half bottled. So we do have some for sale.
We do have it for sale.
now. Okay, good.
And we
And-
have new labels in their slightly different format because
That's good.
the label of our
We have a bit of a
cranberry
trouble
Was
cider
here.
confusing.
is quite similar.
Yeah, if you
to
see
the
them right next to each other
original
here.
Crabapple cider. So the new label, which just came in the other day, with a slightly different color, so you can see it. Same text, same rant. Free rant is included when you buy a bottle of the crabapple cider.
Oh, good.
So this is the new cider, but the old label because we had some
Correct.
labels left over.
Correct.
Okay, good.
What did Hermit have to say about this cider?
The Hermit. This is fun. So this
Yeah,
is one of
yeah,
our
read
labels created by our very talented Deb Lucky, who's our designer right now, and she wrote I believe she wrote this copy. Although Paul may have been involved, I don't know, but maybe not. I know she wrote the original, but this says Hermit Woods Winery, Hermit Heirloom Crabapple Hard Cider, free rant with purchase. Heirloom crab apples are slightly more ornery than your average apple. They don't slide over your tongue in a sea of sweetness. They stop to give your taste buds a talking to, which is especially interesting to vintners such as myself who know that crabby fruit makes a complex and engaging cider. I just have to balance the tang with the sweet. The Hermit.
Yeah.
And that really captures it because
Says it all.
I can still remember biting into that apple and just going, Wow, this is on your tree, Bob. Did you know this is growing in your front yard?
No, I had to
Because
just
we've
rake them
consumed
up
them, a lot of
every year.
them since then.
Yeah.
And these Dolgo crabapples are fantastic, and they're
Yeah.
decorative. You see them in parking lots, you see them in
The
parks.
town park in
You
Meredith.
see them in different places, and the fruit just drops to the ground. The birds eat them.
Yeah.
And people walk by and never pick the fruit and bite into it. It's delicious.
Yeah, they'll give you a sugar rush. I mean, they're that
Oh,
sweet.
yeah.
You don't know they're sweet though when you bite them
Well, there's so much
they're
tartness
so
too. Yeah.
tangy.
Yeah. Yeah.
You don't know it, but they're really quite sweet.
Yeah.
So we switched.
So good.
Yeah,
We switched.
What
Yeah.
do we do? What's-
I'm
at this pretty
behind
thing.
here.
Yeah, you are.
Yeah, this is.
But we've got another cider. This is probably this has got to be our
Everybody knows
bestseller,
about
right?
this one, right?
Yeah, this is the
cranberry
cranberry.
cider.
This is still
It's very different than the.
Much different flavor profile. Very crushable. It's a balance of cranberry and apple notes.
Oh, it's very different.
It's made with a sweet cider, which is a little simpler in nature. But the crabapple cider is also made with a sweet cider as a base. But the Dolgo crabapples go into the sweet cider for that one. And in this case, we take some cranberries from Cape Cod area
So
and ferment those with the cider.
for those who don't know, what does it mean a sweet cider versus a hard cider base?
Yeah, there's a whole class of apples. Most of the apples that are grown today are for consuming. So we go to the supermarket and we buy these apples and we eat these apples. And those apples have been bred to have a little thinner skin and for the sweetness to be forward because we like sugar.
Yes, we do.
And when you take a sweet apple and make a cider out of it, it tastes fine as a cider. When you ferment it, it tastes almost like there's not much there. There's just not much flavor left over. So originally, when people were growing apples, and there are thousands of different varieties, they were breeding these apples, crossing them, and favoring the apples that had thicker skins, a more bitter, astringent finish to them, and a higher acid bite.
Because
So when
most
you-
apples were making cider.
Because the apples were used for cider.
Mm.
And so when you would eat a Kingston Black or a Roxbury Russet, it didn't taste that good. It was, like if you just chew on the skin of a Macintosh apple or a Granny Smith apple, it's quite astringent. But there's not much there. It's very thin. And you get all this sweet meat of the apple behind it.
Right.
Whereas in a cider apple, you have this high acid, high sugar meat, which makes your mouth water. And then you have this thick, astringent skin, which feels like sandpaper in your mouth. Not very good for eating. But when you take and crush that up and ferment it, it makes a really nice, complex cider. So our heirloom cider is based on those heirloom cider types. Whereas the crabapple and the cranberry cider are based on a sweet cider because the crabapples and the cranberries provide the flavor
The tartness. Yeah.
profile.
Yeah.
The tartness, in the case of the crabapple, the astringency. And so I can get away with using a sweet cider base because that's what I'm looking for is just that natural source of sugar and liquid from all the apples that grow around here. And so that's how those are put together.
And that sweet cider, by the way, comes from Apple Hill Farm
From
in
Apple Hill Farm.
Concord. Another
Yep.
good plug there. They're a great group of people down there, and you can get our wine there too.
Mhm.
At their farm stand.
They sell a lot of our wine there
Yeah.
and cider.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, so that's the story on that.
So this is a sweet cider blend with cranberries floating in it and
Right.
fermented. It's
Right.
delicious. It's so different than the other one.
It is
These are
much
two different ciders.
They're
And
completely different
it's interesting because
ciders.
they're both very tart, but
Yep.
in such different ways.
Yes,
Like the
yeah.
crabapple is like biting into a fresh tart apple.
Yeah.
The tartness is coming from the cranberry, so it's a very different sort of tartness.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
It has like a candy
Yeah,
sourness
yeah, yeah.
to it almost.
But without being sweet. I feel like most commercial hard ciders, they back sweeten with fructose corn syrup. And
Well, did you
stuff
know?
and-
Did you know that mass-produced cider in this country, the laws say that only 30% of the product needs to be coming from apples. So a mass-produced hard cider in the U.S. can be made from 30% apples, and the rest is made from high fructose corn
Whatever
syrup.
you want.
Whatever you want. Water and corn syrup. So, of course, all of our apple ciders are made from 100% apples. There's no...
You can definitely
There's no
find hard cider that is like this out there. There's a
sure.
lot
There's lots
of
of
fantastic
great-
traditional
Oh, yeah.
ones.
All over
I'm
the
talking
world.
about the big
But the
national
big,
brands.
yeah, the big name ones are.
Because it's expensive to use that many
Yeah.
apples.
Well,
Sure.
what bothers me about some of the big mass-produced ones is they'll use flavorings as well. And
Right.
you wind up with something like a Granny Smith flavoring in there, and that's something that I just don't like in a cider, right? And nothing that we have.
Yeah, the Granny Smith is for eating or for pies.
Yeah, it's
you
just,
know?
but people associate that. I mean, if you bought candy that was apple flavored, it would taste like Granny
It would
Smith.
taste like a
because
green
that's
apple.
that's what
That's
we've been sold on is what an apple tastes like.
Mm.
And this really, what the apple, the Dolgo, is really to me what an apple tastes like from New Hampshire, right? That
So-
this is very crushable, and it's also in cans, right?
Yes.
So
So
That's-
cans
yeah.
and
I
bottles.
love the cans.
That's my favorite.
It's delicious. It's crushable. It's lower alcohol, 7%.
Because it's in cans, and it's one of the most widely distributed products we have. It's probably the liquid we sell the most of, right?
Yeah.
It is.
So it's very
So good.
popular.
Yep.
I think,
Yeah.
that if I'm forced to admit a favorite Hermit Woods product, is probably going to be the cans of cranberry cider.
Yeah.
Because there's, other things in certain occasions are better for certain things, but
You can almost
I can-
drink this.
I can
anytime.
almost always drink a can of that
I
cider
have a
and be
few
very
cans
happy.
a week, probably. You know,
Yeah.
because I'm
just, I always have one in
downstairs
my fridge
working,
all the
making
time.
one. I get to the end, I'm mopping the floors, cleaning stuff up, and there's a cold can of cider in the fridge.
It's just
Oh,
the
that would
right
just
thing,
be
you know?
great.
Yeah.
Thirst quenching,
Mhm.
Yeah.
easy, nice finish up.
That's
So we're already halfway through,
Okay.
which
Oh
means
my
we
goodness,
have
we gotta drink.
work to do.
All right, we
So
got some work to do.
I think the easy transition is, so we have a cranberry apple cider here. So I think we should try the Winnie Rosé,
All right.
because that's
yeah.
a cranberry apple wine.
And we can talk
And
about the difference.
What's the difference? Because they're both,
So
it's
there's
both apple
there's
and
a good
cranberry.
story
Wait,
behind that too.
Before we go there, let's check in with the audience.
Oh, yeah.
Who's with us today? We haven't talked
We
about
definitely
our
have
audience.
our usuals. We've
Excellent.
got a good, pretty much everybody's on today. Christine's here, Janice is here,
Excellent.
Matt and Lynn have joined us, Gary's
Thank you all.
on, Karen Vecchio is on, Priscilla, of course. Let's see.
We hope
Judy
you all
Hopkins
had a
has joined us. My
wonderful
mom has
Thanksgiving.
joined us. Let's see.
Excellent.
Anyone else chimed in? Pearson Souther. There's a new,
and we know
a
there
new
are a lot,
name.
we know there are
Cheers,
a lot more
Pearson.
people out there that haven't typed
Exactly.
anything.
What are people drinking?
We have some people drinking Heirloom Crabapple, conveniently enough.
Excellent.
And a few people did mention, a couple mentioned that they had crabapple on their tables at Thanksgiving. Wonderful, wonderful.
Good.
I know Bonnie's watching on YouTube, but she can't comment.
Yeah, we
on
don't
Facebook.
really know.
Yeah, we got no.
Oh, this is a good one. Carissa's joined us from Copenhagen.
Oh,
Oh, wow. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Do we ship to Copenhagen?
Not yet.
We don't
No.
yet, but maybe someday.
Not yet.
We
I'm going to-
We miss
have
seeing
to
you,
say,
Carissa.
Yeah, we miss you. We look forward to when you get your next opportunity to come back to New Hampshire and come visit us.
Yeah.
I bet you're having a great time in Copenhagen.
Oh yeah. That's great.
That was
Yeah.
the highlight of my trip. I say my trip to Sweden, but Copenhagen was
Copenhagen was your favorite.
Sweden
But
slash-
yeah, everywhere I visited was fantastic. But I think the 48 hours we spent in Copenhagen might have been.
So what time is it in Copenhagen right now, Chuck?
Oh,
You would
6
know.
hours.
That should be plus 6, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Plus 6 now.
Pretty late.
it's late.
Yeah.
Well, glad you.
Midnight.
Yeah.
So I want to tell you a little bit about the story of this wine.
The,
Do we need
what is
wine-
this?
do we
This
need
is
wine glasses
actually
now?
the very
Or we good?
first vintage.
Yes, we need wine glasses.
Yeah.
This wine, and
Right behind you, Chuck.
right behind you, Chuck.
Very handy.
So
I know. New view.
back in 2016, we had a paucity.
This is a great
of
story.
Dolgo crabapples.
Yeah.
So this was a time where the vintage was failing, and very few.
Just a
Dolgos
word on
were
that.
coming.
Dolgos are cyclical. So very often there's a big crop, then a small crop, big crop, small
Well,
crop, right?
Yeah, what's interesting is all apple trees are like that.
Okay.
But in
we
an
prune it out.
orchard, they prune and they irrigate to try to flatten that curve so that they can rely on the cash flow as the business and to supply their products.
Right.
So their Granny Smiths and their Macintosh and all of those are being pruned and watched. The crabapple trees, and a lot of orchards are just there for pollinators. They're a great attractor to pollinators. The pollinators go there and then continue on to the other flowers so that they can get all of their Macintosh and the rest of them. So they don't often prune a Dolgo crabapple tree because they don't really care about the fruit. They just care about the flowers. And if they don't prune it, they get a ton of flowers and a whole bunch of small fruit that they let drop to the ground. So every other year, typically we have more apples than we know what to do with or not enough apples. So back in 2016, Chuck was reaching out to the orchards midsummer. How's it looking? What's going on? And they're all shaking their head like, no, I don't know. It's not looking too good. A late frost or, fruit didn't set. Something was coming up.
Wrong year.
So prior to 2016, many times people would come into our winery and they would try our crabapple wine and they'd get through their tasting and they go, I'm going to get a bottle of that cranapple wine. And they'd walk over, can I get a bottle of that cranapple wine? And we'd correct them. It's actually a crabapple wine. Oh, yes, that cranapple one. That's what I want. So back then.
They still do it today.
They still probably do it today. Because it has sort of a cranberry.
It does.
Sort of
It does.
character to it.
It's
an honest mistake.
And people are more commonly drinking or eating cranberries than crab apples.
Right.
Yeah. You think
They don't
about
think of
cranberry.
crab
You
apples
think
as
about
a
cranberry,
product you
but
would drink.
crab apples.
Mhm.
That's just something that falls on the ground.
Yeah.
So in 2016, we were faced with not enough crab apples. Back then we were making about 1,000 gallons of crabapple wine, and we were only going to have enough for 500 gallons. So half of our major product was not going to happen. So we decided, well, let's try to make a cranapple wine.
Well, you had actually wanted to do this for a while.
I did, because
And
it's
you just
classic
didn't have room in the
cranberry
schedule,
and
right?
apples,
It was-
right?
yeah.
Or the tank.
Or the tank.
Well, I was going to have an empty tank,
Yeah.
a 500-gallon tank.
Hmm.
So I look back at my notes today when I found this bottle of 16. There's only 3 left. Now only 2 left.
So that's
in the
our
world that I
very
know of.
first vintage.
So it's the very first vintage. I went up to our library today and grabbed it. And I went back to my notes. I actually did some bench trials. I made small batches of different ratios. And then when I made the 500-gallon batch, I made a separate batch of cranberry wine in an oak barrel fermenter.
Oh, wow.
I didn't even know I did that.
Wow.
And I put oak staves in this right in the primary fermenter.
Wow.
And then I made a separate apple wine so that my main batch, if I was off one way or the other, I could adjust it after the fermentation took place. Because I was really
Smart.
nervous. I was making 500 gallons here.
Right out of the gate.
Right out of the
You
gate.
should be reminded that almost every wine that you've made here started out in a small carboy. Or
Yeah,
a
there's usually
tank.
small. Yeah.
Yeah. So that if it doesn't go quite right,
Yeah, they can do something
the
else.
loss isn't too bad.
Right. But I was
you jumped right in.
I had to jump right in.
500 gallons.
And then we had this new vision of interacting with the community and bringing in artists and contributing sales to the greater good of the society and all this stuff. So it was a double program that went out.
Yeah.
And we had a
It was a big
huge
release.
with press and people and artists and all
Yeah.
these things.
Well, Stephen Hodexter's artwork is
Yeah.
the centerpiece.
Wow,
of
I haven't had
label.
this in
And
years.
It's
This-
really an absolutely beautiful label. I mean, the whole product, the packaging, the
I remember when the three of
Wow.
us were at EWE and we decided on that bottle.
Yeah.
Because we were thinking of the classic Bordeaux sort of thing, and then we saw that they call it a
Oh,
Hoch
yeah, yeah,
bottle,
yeah, yeah.
HOCH, and we thought there's a lot of Rieslings are done that way.
What's
And
amazing
we
is,
thought, wow, that's going to look really great.
so you created this wine for, out of the blue. You made 500 gallons of it, and we introduced it to the audience, our audience in our tasting room that year for the first time. And almost immediately, this became our number 1 selling wine. It
Still
is today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, if you combine Petit Blue and Petit Blue Reserve, that is our number 1 selling wine in terms of volume. But you have to combine those two, and those are two
And
different
same
wines
with like the
technically.
cranberry cider versus bottles versus cans. And most of that is through distribution, not through
Yes,
winery,
yes.
right? So it's kind of different.
You
at the
really
same
have
time.
to, because we just said the can cider is our most popular liquid. We sell more of that, but that's because it's very widely distributed and it has a lot of different channels. But out of this tasting room, that's the one bottle that leaves here the most. You made in that little whim of figuring out how to create something to replace crabapple, you made our most popular wine. And to this day,
It was really fun looking back
it was
through my
the most
notes
popular
today.
wine.
That was amazing. I mean, I was on it like a hawk. I look back,
I thought when we released the sparkling strawberry rhubarb, I thought maybe we're going to unseat.
Yeah.
No, we're
Not
not going to unseat it.
I think because this, to me, so this is, if people walk into the winery and they don't have time to even do a tasting, they're just grabbing a bottle to take home as a souvenir, as a gift for someone.
That helps.
This is what I direct them to usually,
Yeah.
because it's that perfect middle ground
It's
of
got the beautiful
semi-dry.
label, it's got the,
Yep.
the local
It has
artist.
a hint of sweetness. So if you like a sweet wine, it might be just sweet enough.
Yep.
But if you prefer a dry wine, it's not too sweet.
Right.
So it's that lovely middle
it
ground.
goes with every
The only
food.
people that don't like it are those that really hate cranberries.
Makes sense.
But everybody else likes this wine.
Yeah.
And you don't even get
yeah,
a lot of
it has the
cranberry.
local
I mean,
connection.
This has changed a lot.
This is
but-
And it's called
Winnipesaukee Rosé, so it's a perfect souvenir.
Which is why
it
almost
has a
everybody comes
beautiful
here.
painting done by a local artist. It gives back to the community because we donate 10%
10%.
of the profits back to community organizations. Right now, it's the Greater Meredith program, which does all sorts of good things. So it's just
It's a
got it
great-
all going
it's an
on.
easy choice.
And because it's become our best seller, we've donated tens of thousands of dollars to local charities
Yeah.
through the sale of this wine. So it's win-win for everybody. It's really,
I remember when
so cool.
we wanted to introduce this to the state liquor stores. And they said $24.95 for a locally made rosé? Not a chance.
Not a
Sorry,
chance.
we're not interested.
We're not interested.
And you said, look, this is really popular in our tasting room. We sell it for $24.95 all the time. So why don't you try it? And if it doesn't work out, we'll buy it all back. And they said, okay, whatever, we'll try it. And they reorder it all the time. It's spread out to a whole bunch of
It's
state liquor
delicious.
stores.
It's a great wine.
Yeah.
I'd
It's
say
really-
there are a few wines that we have, this is one of them, and that are some of our customer base. This is their wine.
It ticks
They
all
will
the
come
boxes.
and they will buy, 6 bottles or a full case at
I
once.
like drinking this wine. It
And I'd
just
say
goes
it's
with
this
everything.
one, maybe Petite Blue might be the other one that there are people just, they always have
Yep.
to have some bottles of Petite Blue in
It's
stock.
Keep doing that.
It is.
No, I'm saving space. I got
Yeah,
a
we've got
couple
more
more to
coming.
go.
Matt, of course, says he sends everyone to Red Scare.
Of course,
Which
it
is fair.
Which is good.
Well, yeah,
you know what?
Yes,
You know what
Matt.
the,
Yes, Matt. I drink more
So
Red
Matt,
Scare
you'll be
than
interested
rosé.
to know that this week, right behind Rosé was, of course, our new flashy release of the
Cirque
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 Strawberry. But right behind that is Red Scare. So that's because
Scare's
Matt
definitely a
keeps
hit.
telling everybody about it. So thank you, Matt.
Probably.
Yeah. Keep up the good work, man.
Yeah.
All
So,
right, what's next?
well, but as we go into pouring what's next, so why is this a wine, not a cider? Why is that cider not apple wine?
Great
That's
question.
a great question.
Great question.
'Cause that's a question we get all the time.
It's made out of apples, primarily with some cranberries. And during the fermentation process, I add sugar to it. And that sugar is converted from the yeast into alcohol, pushing it up into wine alcohol range. So it's an apple wine instead of an apple cider. So
Versus
if
a
you just
cider
use
is
the natural
just
sugar,
the natural sugars.
is a cider, and then if you modify it in some way to bring the alcohol up, it's called an apple wine.
So if you were to use the sweetest apples out there, what's the highest alcohol level you could probably get to with a hard cider?
Great question. Chuck and Bob and I did this with Roxbury Russets at back in the winery when it was at Bob's in his basement, and those apples I think had a sugar level of 18 bricks, which produced about 9% ABV or so.
Which is probably about as high
So
as
that's
yeah, it's
about
probably
as high as you can go.
But yeah, most ciders
Unless you
are 3.5 to 5%. Ours
unless
are
you
more like 7.
cryogenically boost
We
it.
would never do that.
So you could take the cider that you press from a lower sugar apple and put it outside in the wintertime and let it start to freeze and skim off the ice. And people used to do this with maple sap. You can just let it freeze and keep skimming off the ice, and it gets sweeter and sweeter and sweeter. And you can do the same thing with apple juice. Make the apple juice, let it freeze, skim off the ice, and it gets sweeter and sweeter and sweeter.
And you know
then
what we
ferment
call that?
That's
That's
Applejack.
Applejack.
or ice cider.
Have you ever seen? I've heard, like, I've learned about Applejack because of our whole story that we might have time to share. Many of you probably know already
we got
about
5
how
glasses of it over there to share.
how we came up with Deep Blue is trying to jack our Petite Blue.
Right.
So I've learned about Applejack, but then can you ever buy it? Do you see it ever in stores? Are people doing this?
I think people
Anymore?
who do it make it up, and they just do it as a marketing thing, like they back fortify.
But you don't think that there's anyone actually making Applejack
who
the
has
traditional
a
way?
distillery, a distilling license, is just going to distill it and make an apple-based brandy.
Okay.
Um,
So that's another question. So apple brandy is distilled
apple cider.
apple cider
Hard apple
versus Applejack is using that freezing method.
Yeah, and that's a post fermentation. You've made the alcohol, and then instead of distilling it in a still, you distill it by freezing it, removing the ice, or removing it from the ice.
Which is a distillation process
Which
called
is a-
cryogenic distillation. So it's just, you're distilling it either way. You're removing the water.
Making it stronger.
Yeah.
There
Before
are
you-
ice wines that they actually
Oh, my
sweeten
goodness.
by freezing and skimming off the water.
So-
without distilling.
Right.
So that's-
the
yeah.
classic ice wine is made from freezing grapes on the vine, but a lot of places can't achieve the temperatures necessary to freeze the
Some
grapes
ice ciders are made
on the
that way,
vine.
too.
Yes,
Remember
exactly.
that press we saw?
Pinnacle cider
Yeah,
up in
Pinnacle.
in Canada. They freeze the apples on the tree
Yeah.
and press the frozen apples, and
Very
it leaves
With
the
a massive hydraulic press.
right, because you can imagine a bunch of
Squeeze a
frozen apples.
softball.
So that's how
So
you.
then when you're making
extract
that ice
your
wine or cider, what's pressing out is a more concentrated
sugar.
because what's
water's
frozen in the
frozen.
the water is frozen.
Exactly. So for those who don't have the temperatures to achieve that on the vine or on the tree with the apples, they achieve it by taking the fruit off the vine at the regular time when we all do, the apples or the grapes, and they press them, create a juice, and then they freeze the juice.
Put it in a big freezer.
Yeah, and they achieve a similar result. You extract the water that way, and then you ferment that. And a lot of cideries, like Eden Cider,
Eden does that in
is
Vermont.
that out in Vermont, and there's some other cideries that do that as well. And then there was Ken's method, where you create the alcohol, and that's the problematic method, unless you have a distillery license. So
We don't have one of those
you
yet?
don't have one of those yet.
Yet being keyword.
No.
Yeah, we might.
Someday.
So moving right along, before we go to the next wine, we just want to ask you, what did you guys think? Because this is
I'm amazed
this is
that it tastes
7-year-old.
It's fine.
It's aged out.
It's age. Okay, I
It's
was going to
aged out,
say.
in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree.
I think it's still a delightful wine, but it's not what it started off as.
No, it's
And
past.
It's past.
I agree.
Because this is one you recommend drink within a couple of years.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not
Yeah,
intended
That's
to
what
be
it's all
aged.
about. It's about a fresh.
So
sweetness.
if you have a 20, you should be planning on getting it done by Christmas.
But we made an apple wine at Bob's house while he was away hiking the Appalachian Trail. And we called it a state apple. You and I climbed his trees, cut some of them down, and just picked all these apples and crushed it while you were away hiking, and threw them into buckets and created. And I pulled one of those out of my cellar about a few months ago, and it was unbelievable. 2010 estate apple.
I think we had one 2 weeks ago, Chuck.
Was that the estate apple?
I think we had one of those. If we didn't, I have one in the cellar.
You gotta try it. It's really
It
fantastic.
was not very good 5 years ago.
No,
2
no.
years
It
ago.
was a little sour.
Yeah.
They were unripe. They were
No, they're very low sugar.
We're
Sure.
gonna have another one of those events, those live events where we bring some ancient
Good.
wines from the cellar. 'Cause I have a
Speaking of
bunch.
ancient wine, this
Let's-
next one I just realized is 2012.
Oh my goodness.
Marika pulled this out of
Do you want a little
library.
rinse here, Chuck? You're good.
There is
Yeah,
still
just do that.
one, I mean, maybe there's more hidden at the warehouse somewhere, but there is still one bottle of this on our shelves right now, available for purchase for club members. We have a little
This
library
date?
wine shelf. And there is,
12?
there's one more of these downstairs.
12.
Wow.
10 years old.
They've been, you should know, I know many of our regular watchers are club members. We do have a small shelf in the winery that is the library wines that are available just for club members, and Ken periodically will find a case at the warehouse and bring it over and make that available for your
There was a bunch
purchase.
of them I saw today. Actually, I was up there in the wire.
We could use a restock because right now There's one bottle of Old Petit Blue. There's one more bottle of this Cider, and I think 2.
Oh, I can restock with a whole
2 of
bunch
not
of
sap.
library stuff.
Especially probably before the club
So-
party.
Now, this is unique because this is a little different format, that it's okay to age it because this is on honey. This is a cider. So this is still an apple-based product, but it's a mead. And when you make mead from honey and apples, it's called a cider.
Okay, but before we go down this road,
You go.
on Marika's point, you said you have a bunch more of our library wines. We need to do a library show and bring some new library wines to the show,
And then have them for sale.
and then we'll put them for sale so people know about them and they'll know
Yes.
which ones are how they're drinking. Because some of them may be drinking better than others. Like we said, this library
That's
wine
aged
is
out. We only
aged
have 2
out,
bottles left of that.
and we wouldn't recommend that to you to purchase. But
But something
we'll
like
try them
this.
at one of our future. So maybe next.
Yeah.
I don't know. Next. Oh, we'll talk about next week. But a coming show, we will do that.
What's happening next week?
I don't think we're gonna have it. We're gonna have our show on Sunday next week.
We have a meeting.
Oh, because
have a meeting.
we're
Oh.
going.
We're going somewhere.
We're going somewhere.
Yes,
Ooh,
so-
stay
Well, that's a
tuned for
great.
that.
Oh yeah, we talked about that.
We're gonna have the show on Sunday, and there will
That's a
be.
great idea. No, we can't do that. Not next Sunday.
Oh.
We have an event next Sunday, Bob.
Oh.
There's a
We have an
concert
event
here.
Oh.
We could do it
On
in
the
the
4th?
cellar.
Listen, we're gonna have a plan
could
for
do it in the
you
cellar.
because you know how well
We
we
will plan
plan
it.
this
Oh, yeah,
stuff
we will-
in
we will
advance.
plan it. Tuesday?
Every time we will do a show for you
Next
in
week.
advance, and we'll broadcast it during the live show. But you'll be able to tune in live
We'll
So
figure
we're
it
going
out.
to do it live on Sunday, and then we're going to
or
replay
someday
it on Monday.
on Monday. Yeah,
While we're somewhere
we're
else.
somewhere else. You have to
I will not be
We're
present.
somewhere else where we.
I will
can't
probably be at the
broadcast.
event.
be. You'll be somewhere else.
Well, I'll be at the event.
You'll be somewhere else.
Yes.
Yeah, you'll be at the event.
Yes.
With us
That's why we're going to record this at
Sunday.
another time
on Monday.
because you'll be with us.
She's going to be at
Somewhere
the
else.
event on Sunday.
On Monday?
There's an event here.
But I can't be
Oh,
at the
yeah.
recording because I will
On
be at
Monday.
the event.
No, on
On
Sunday.
Monday.
She's talking about Sunday.
We're all
When we
I
confused.
can't
record.
record on Sunday
I
if I'm
said
at the
we're not
event.
going to record on Sunday.
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
you did say.
You
we
said that.
That's what you said.
No, because
Oh
you
my
said,
goodness.
and
It
we
doesn't matter.
said, and
Well,
she
we were
said.
gonna record on Sunday.
we
We have
can't.
to. How can we replay on Monday if we don't record on Sunday?
Well, maybe we record on Friday, or maybe
Friday?
Saturday, or maybe Tuesday. We'll figure it out.
Anyway, next week there will be some sort of broadcast at some point. Anyway,
Such chaos.
but
All around
today,
apples. How does this happen?
I know these are the lower alcohol beverages that we serve too. What's the deal?
I don't know.
is this, I was in, oh,
Maybe
I
it was the
checked. Oh no,
pregame.
this one's fine. I was gonna say sometimes.
This one's fine.
Well, your meads sometimes, I think in particular, the mead is where you tend to get a little more experimental. And I think sometimes the alcohol level,
It pushes it a little bit because there's
well,
plenty
I mean,
of
the
sugar. Why not,
blackberries
right?
listed as 15.7. This one only says 11.
So this is 10 years old.
Yeah.
Cider.
Yeah, it's
So a cider, real quick, everybody, if you don't remember, cider is a honey wine made with apples.
Didn't
So
I
if
say
you,
You did.
maybe, but we were arguing over here about what day we were going to do the show, so I missed it.
I love this. The cider, I think, has always been my favorite mead that we have at Hermit Woods. To me, it's like when you go to apple orchards and they have those
I still
honey
think I'm
sticks.
sitting where a tripod should be.
You are.
Ken's confused. But the sort of apple flavored honey stick is what I think of this, without being quite that sweet, of course.
What's interesting is get all that. It's
not sweet at all.
Like spice, like
This one, I
Holiday
think that's from the
spice.
aging. I think
Yeah.
when we have the fresh cider didn't taste like
Oh
this.
no, this
No, it
is
doesn't.
10 or 11 years old. And unlike this, it's actually, I think, gotten
it
better.
gets better.
Yeah.
Right. The
That's
crabapple
wonderful.
ciders, when they're young, are more like a young crabapple wine.
Yeah,
they're
fresh,
they're fruity,
appley,
they're fresh,
fruity.
all that stuff.
But then they build these
But then
complex flavors.
That's
and
what I love about mead. It really ages well.
Yeah, there's
This
this
kind of has
spice.
like a honeycomb richness,
Mm-hmm.
and a really nice mid-palate, creamy, thick, just delicious. Everything that you kind of associate with honey comes out in it.
Mm.
I mean, like real honey, like with the honeycomb and the bees and the wings and the.
I had a bottle of-
Well, I think
I had a bottle of
Marika's
honeycomb
example
last night.
was spot on, minus the sweetness.
The honey sticks?
Yes,
Right.
I love those. Yeah, they're,
Yeah,
you know, they have all the
that's
different
all that
flavors.
Yeah.
And,
it was spot on.
but the spice is different too, though.
That's what's really interesting to me is the spice that's developed
Mm-hmm.
with it. Really nice.
And you talked about this a week or so ago, that you made was it a 3-spice mead or a spiced mead at
Yeah,
one
we have a
point?
3-spice mead.
And that was one
I'm gonna make it again,
I
actually.
found a bottle of that at the warehouse and was able to give it to my sister for Christmas, but the bottle hadn't
It was
aged
not
well.
good.
The bottle went funky and the
Yeah.
cork was all gross, so we didn't actually get
We
to
had
taste
troubles
it.
with cork back then, unfortunately.
That happens.
But didn't you mention?
You
I think
age wine, it's
you're going to make that
physiology.
again.
But that, I'm going to make it again. And I've noticed that when I've tracked meads, the only meads that fall apart are those that have those delicate floral things from spices. I have some
So they
fresh
don't age as
local
well.
lavender downstairs, so I'm going to be making another lavender mead. And I'm going to do it in a small batch so that we can sell it and have it consumed.
It seems
It's
like
not gonna be something
to
that's gonna
me,
be aged.
flowers seem like you want them to be bright and fresh, and like
Right.
the session meads are going to be a little lighter and floral. Versus an aged mead, I want to be like, I don't know, maybe a little heavier and oakier and
Right.
maybe spicier.
Right.
So you and I had a spice mead the other day, and that's exactly what you came. We had one from my cellar that was old, that was very old.
We did?
Yeah, and you said that same thing. You said that you were disappointed. that
Yeah, I
it
had
lost-
one out of my cellar
I can picture
a month or two ago.
not spices in like cinnamon and clove, but spices in like ginger.
So
I
this,
think, like, I feel like a ginger apple would be a really
three-spice
Classic
mead
combo.
that I'll do again is a formula that I came up with years ago. And these guys suffered through some of the experiments, like Coney
I
Island.
remember that day on the
Hot dog one.
on
the
your
hot dog
yeah
one.
the hot dog
Yeah, I had
one.
mustard seed, and I put black trumpet mushrooms in one, and tried all sorts of different things. But the coriander, cardamom, and black pepper,
Oh,
those are the three
Interesting.
spices. All of them local, of course.
Yeah.
And they're ground together, and they somehow create a somewhat ginger-like note that comes through in the wine.
well, I think those are often. I mean, the cardamom and coriander are sort of
Coriander grows
Middle
here, fine.
Eastern ginger. I don't know.
And
I
ginger
can see it.
grows here in a greenhouse.
Cardamom,
In a
no.
greenhouse.
Cardamom, no.
Yeah.
Black pepper.
Black pepper.
Black pepper?
No,
No.
Yeah.
I know.
Okay.
That's why I said it. Not really. I diverged
Yes.
from the local there.
Yeah.
I will say.
But that's in that's the one thing. If you go to like a true farm to table, the one place where they will give some forgiveness.
Salt and pepper?
Salt, pepper. Although you can get salt locally.
Yeah, it's all
but you
over the
can't
roads.
get pepper.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember.
It's
So,
off the roads, right?
Have any of you read the book Animal Vegetable Miracle? It was a Barbara Kingsolver
Oh,
novel.
that's a great book. I
Very
love that
great
book.
book. And her family did sort of this experiment to write this book. They were living in,
Right.
I think, in Appalachia
Coffee-
area.
Yeah, it was
and
in
they
Virginia, West Virginia.
lived 100% farm to table. But every family member got one cheat item. And so, one person picked
One was
coffee.
coffee.
One, I think, was chocolate.
Yep.
But I don't remember if they made exceptions for spices. I think they might have, but I can't remember.
I
I'd have
can't
to
remember
reread.
either.
It was
I read that
such a
when it
good book.
came out.
Highly recommend to anybody. But everybody got that one cheat item.
The one cheat item I get, but the exception for spices
Yeah, maybe they
seems
didn't.
inappropriate.
Maybe that was somebody's cheat item.
I mean, they certainly didn't have those options 200 years ago.
Exactly.
They weren't the folks in Appalachia, Virginia, weren't importing pepper from other parts of the world. I
Well,
don't
they
think.
might have. The ships were going back and forth.
No,
all over.
but they didn't get it.
Yeah, probably not.
This is
This is delicious.
This is really
How much
cool.
do you have of this?
I have no idea. This was the last bottle,
I
on our.
think that there's
library
one
shelf.
more down on the library shelf, but there isn't any more out back or anything. So that might be it.
That's darn near perfect drinking
Yeah.
time right
Mhm.
So
now.
10 years,
Mhm.
that's the problem with these mead made like this, is that it develops that great character in 10 years.
Well-
As a business, we sat on this bottle for 10 years.
Well, I think
It's 10 years.
the good
you're right,
news
but
is
that's,
that-
but that's why you're exactly right. And I think a lot of wineries and wine savvy people know that you go and you buy that wine when it's available, and then you stick it in your cellar and you sit on it. I mean, that's what we all do. You find something that's good, you look for the
You
date.
guys do that.
Well, I don't do it. He does it. I drink all mine too.
Bob does that well, yeah.
We go to Bob's
You
house
go
and
to
drink
Bob's
his
house.
wine.
But the important thing to remember is that all the wines that we release for sale are drinking beautifully at the time they're released. The fact that they'll get better,
Yeah.
it's really
Just a
not
bonus.
necessarily about getting better. It's getting to be different, which is something you can't get from the winemaker. So that's a good distinction because there's a lot of great wines. You know, I buy wines all the time that say can be drank anytime between now and 2040. Right? So that means I can drink it now.
Yeah.
And it will be good now.
Right.
And it will be delicious. In 2040, it will be a different wine. It won't be what it is now. It won't be better.
Can you see him in 2040?
I got this one back in 2022. You talked to me about right now.
He does that pretty well. It's almost like he's got some
Say,
practice.
you guys could have another 20 years. You've got another 20 years in you.
in our diapers laughing at him.
You guys could have another 20 years. Depends on how many rogue bike rides you go on. That might be it. That might be
We don't
the.
talk about 2040 anymore. Drink all your wine now.
Yeah.
Get aging.
'Cause that's true. We wouldn't put it on the shelf if it wasn't ready to drink.
No,
yet,
that's
right?
the point. It's really important distinction is that the wine is delicious now and it will be delicious when Ken's trying to get he does that
With a
all too
straw.
well. You are a few years older than me, so just be careful.
I know.
So, but there is something special too when you do put that wine in the cellar and you go and drink it. Because I've had this happen now a few times because I happen to be able to age
Actually,
some
he's been
wines.
teasing me. He's been putting stuff on Facebook with Geraldine, with his first wife. He's been, bringing out something from his cellar, drinking
Something
this,
special?
2012 Syrah or something.
Always, every time you're over, I offer you go down to the cellar, get what you want. There you go. You just don't come over enough. See,
That's true.
We've got 2 minutes left.
2 minutes.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
We got a whole nother one.
What are we drinking? Oh, this is everybody knows about this one.
No, but this
Well, but
is
no, I mean,
2017.
this is just,
This
it's
is
just
5
Heirloom
years old.
Crabapple, right? That's not a big
You wanna
deal.
throw this one back?
But what year is
Likewise.
this?
This is 2017. And this
So
was
what happens to a
special-
crab apple after 5-6 years of
Yeah,
aging?
this was a special one because we had a whole marketing adventure to deal with
Ooh,
and a whole packaging
Ooh.
thing. We missed the packaging.
this one's aged nicely, I think.
Ooh,
Very nicely. I like this. Yeah.
Mm.
If you all wonder what we're doing, most of you know
We're
by now,
drinking.
but the first little splash is just a rinse. We rinse the last bit. We blend it with the last wine in the glass, swirl it, drink it, and you'll get to taste it.
What
But
all tripods should do.
oh,
you
this is
try and
wonderful.
tripods.
He's still sitting where the tripod should be.
I am. This feels
This
like
is great. See,
three-legged
this-
stool.
It's really bothering you, isn't it?
The crabapple is interesting to me because sometimes when I drink crabapple, I actually do taste a honey note to it in a way. It's almost like it. Yeah.
Oh,
What the
wow.
heck is this?
This is
Oh, this
good.
has smelled really good.
We tell
2017.
It's a 5-year-old
Yeah,
wine.
crab apple.
almost 6. We're 23s,
And
right?
this,
around the
we
corner.
usually recommend our crabapple you drink within
Couple
a year,
years.
a couple years, right?
2 years.
Oh my God.
This is holding up nicely.
And I think we
This
still
hasn't
probably
passed
say
at all.
that, but
Mouthfeel,
Mm.
Holy
done
crap.
with-
So I pulled this out of a box. We have a case of this. So
Ooh.
this should come over as a library one.
Yes.
Because this is drinking right on.
Right on.
all right.
This is-
so
This is like
tomorrow,
one of those rosés
going to
I
the
buy
warehouse
from
tomorrow, Ken?
Garage East that I paid $30 for.
It still has an acidity.
I know, it's
Mouthfeel. It's like this
perfect.
creamy.
This is coming out of the cellar, folks.
It's
Marika's going to figure out how to get Ken to get it out of the cellar to bring here to the winery
Yeah, there's
will be available this week
this week.
at the winery.
At the winery.
For club members only,
Wow.
Mm.
What a
unless you're really, really nice to us.
No, that's not the rule.
The aroma's fantastic.
Air, like air.
Here we are weaving again.
Hair or
We're making
hair?
a rug out of hair.
Plain.
Not out of your hair. It's
Hair.
too short. Too
Yes,
short.
Not with hairs.
We could make a little mouthy
Made with hairs.
rug.
Yeah.
Yours.
On the heirloom.
Hair.
Oh, the heirloom.
Which is the Dolgo, right? The
Did you have some Dolgo before you came over?
No.
Oh.
No. I got off an airplane, drove right here, went to my house.
Oh, wow.
changed clothes, and-
Was the airplane
Yeah,
upside
I just
down?
saw the show. No, I was watching. I
We
was
started with
watching
that and we
World
end with
Cup.
that.
I was watching World Cup soccer. Brazil was playing.
While you were driving?
No, I was a passenger. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Came up on JetBlue.
This is delicious, by the way.
This is
Cheers.
Cheers.
Nice way to end the show. With this
Quite.
delicious wine.
Join us and certainly buy one of these wines.
So-
here in town.
Yeah, these are going to be on the shelf within the next couple of days. Marika is going to make sure of it. And a couple of things that we should let you know. There's some great shows coming up. We have Meta Beat, which is going to be our largest stage performance ever on our stage. There's six artists coming
Oh,
to the
wow.
stage on Thursday night.
Oh my goodness.
I cannot wait. It's going to be
That's
an
gonna be a wall of
amazing
sound.
show. So if you're around Thursday night, please come out. Club members get 20% off now on all of our shows. So if you can make it, and then after that we have a band called Trade coming the following Thursday, and we have a special event. It's almost sold out, but there's a Christmas release. John Lockwood, who often plays our piano, is doing a special fundraiser for Lakes Region Community Services Council, and or Lakes Region Community Service. It used to be council when I worked there, but it's not council anymore. I gotta
And
keep
for
remembering
that, so those ones aren't available through us. Tickets for that must be available on the Lakes Region Community Services
yes.
website.
So I did put it out there to our
Yeah.
world, so you did see it, but it's I think there's just a couple tickets left for Sunday night. And it's going to be a premiere of this new CD by David Lockwood. So
It's
if
Christmas-
you can make it,
Christmas
it's a Christmas concert.
Yes. Oh, and
And a
Justin
fundraiser.
McKinney is coming
Justin
back too. in a
McKinney's
couple
coming.
weeks.
If you can make it on the 14th, I think it is. It's Wednesday. We have a big January.
I'm surprised we still have tickets left for that. The last time we did a Justin McKinney show, it sold out so fast.
Wangari's
Oh,
coming back.
yes.
Gary's coming back on the
Wangari, if you
that
got to
was
see that show,
Such a great show. I gotta go. For
she's coming back on the 22nd,
Oh, that's
and
Thanksmas.
the Christmas show is
We will be
sold
there.
out.
night before Thanksgiving.
So we have our
Yeah.
Charlie Brown
Yeah.
Christmas.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You guys
That's
settle down. We have a show to do. So
What?
lots of good
Lots of things
things.
upcoming.
I'm going to send out an email tomorrow that'll tell you about all these things, so you don't have to remember. But I hope you can make some of them. We have a really exciting. We have a charcuterie class coming up, don't we?
Yes, also sold out.
Oh, it's sold out. Oh, sorry.
That's sold out.
There's probably a waiting list. I think if you contact her at 6.
Well, there'll be another one. If you miss this one, there'll be another one. So
I
don't
think
worry. But-
February. I think we have one scheduled already.
So everybody,
Anyway,
we will
lots coming up.
see you
Keep in touch.
sometime between now and next year. If you're subscribed, you'll know because you'll get a notice.
Big,
But
yeah.
we're going to go live because on Monday of next
We'll
week,
probably go live tomorrow.
we're going to do we'll be absent from the show. We will actually broadcast a pre-recorded show, which we're going to pre-record sometime between now and Monday. And
Oh, it's on Sunday night.
So
he's been drinking.
we'll
hasn't
figure
he?
it out.
I haven't been.
But you'll see us next week. We'll try and post as soon as we can, as soon as we have a plan.
Yes.
But until then, definitely subscribe because I already know that these guys have plans for the week. They might be out and about and might be going live from other places.
It's possible. Other places in the world.
From Rosebrook.
Yeah.
So keep in touch. Cheers to everyone.
Cheers.
Thanks for another great
Thank
show.
you.
My glass is empty.
Excellent. Oh, geez. There's a little bit in there. Have a good